Pull up, grab the fuel nozzle, and get ready to fuel up on trends and strategies to grow your travel center business in this episode of The Truck Stops Here, brought to you by NATSO. Now, here's your host, Amy Toner.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Truck Stops Here. I'm your host, Amy Toner. You are listening to The Truck Stops Here, the NATSO Foundation's podcast. The NATSO Foundation is the research, education, and public outreach subsidiary of NATSO. The podcast is just one of the many educational tools that the foundation creates. The podcast took a little summer break, and now we're back with a very exciting guest. From supply chain distributions to shifting customer demands to ongoing labor shortages, the past few years have been fraught with challenges for retailers. Technology is playing a vital role in helping companies meet those challenges head on. And that, with all that going on, is why we definitely need to have Bethany Allee. She is the head of education and marketing at PDI to talk about convenience and fuel technology. Hi, Bethany.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You guys have so many exciting things that are in our industry, and I had a really hard time writing all these questions. So let's just start with the big picture. What do you think is most exciting in convenience technology right now?
It's the connectors. And when I say that, I'm not literally talking about the wires. I'm talking about the fact that our industry really has to handle very complex, specific, highly governed issues. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we've seen the rise of lots of point solutions over time, right?
Right.
And right now in technology, it's giving us those connectors I'm talking about, they're giving us ways to bridge and connect the solutions. And for me, that's really exciting to watch. And I have some specific examples, but point of sale, right? Point of sale, the POS environment is changing for the first time in 3 decades. That's massively interesting and exciting to me. Mm-hmm. And in full disclosure, we've entered the market, and there's at least one other competitor that we're seeing enter the market. And this is going to be hugely game changing and impactful for the broader ecosystem. And I'm really excited to see how it plays out.
Absolutely. It's so strange that it took this long, but absolutely in the last, 1 or 2 years, it's just exploded.
It totally is. And I mean, one of the things we look through with like our API and our commerce platform is that we joke about point of sale changing, but really it's a true omni-channel presence that's changing within the industry, and it's points of sale, right? So of course there's the POS that we all think of traditionally, but when we think of the omni-channel component of it, there's the Grubhub and the GoPuff, and having all of that data integrated into master data. Historically, all those parts and pieces weren't connected.
Yeah.
And so now we're getting to a world where it's not just this one thing, it's more of an ecosystem of the things. And so it's going to be, like I said, very exciting to see it play out.
Absolutely. You know, at NATSO, we've been talking about inventory management for years. It's a big part of running at truck stops. And I think in the last few years, as supply chains have been more disrupted, it has been even more important. Can you give us some advice on what smart retailers should be doing with technology and inventory?
Well, they should be looking at their supply chain as a whole, right? Mm-hmm. And the more interconnected that they can make the data within their supply chain, the better they're going to be able to supply within, as well as the better we can all serve consumers on the outside of it, right? There's this concept, and it's called supply chain whiplash. And this idea is that when one part of the supply chain gets disrupted, then further down the supply chain, things get even more disrupted. And so it causes this bigger and bigger issues. And so one component of that, like a real world component that we all have to deal with, is that if the store has a demand shift, the supplier won't necessarily know.
Right.
So there's this concept, this idea that if everyone could see it, we could best cooperate and support the consumer. And at the end of the day, we'd all sell more things and deliver better products.
Okay. All right. So we're going to shift to something that I've been working on in the NATSO Foundation for the last few months. We're putting out this brand new toolkit that's full of survey data on grow of wallet share. So, you know, there's just a lot of opportunity for truck stop owners and operators to get more people inside and to get them to spend. So we did this big survey, and the toolkit is coming out any minute now. So I thought, you know, this is probably an area where you might have some advice. So what are your ideas on how they can get people inside to spend more money?
Well, I'm interested in seeing your toolkit when it's
good. Yeah, absolutely.
About that. But for For truck stops specifically,
Mm-hmm.
it's around dwell time, right? And dwell time is most heavily impacted for these particular establishments around food and showering and laundry,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if you can get people in to spend that quality dwell time with you, then how you can shift your mindset to how do you maximize their share of wallet during that dwell time, right? And
Yeah.
that's when things like personalized offers that occur to them and take place during that time frame,
Mm-hmm.
that would be hugely impactful, right? Somebody's sitting there and they're doing their laundry, but they're dwelling in your store to send them real-time offers. That'd be hugely impactful. But going back to it, I mean, I also think there's just such a huge opportunity with anything around food quality, timing, and demand forecasting, right? Because not only does that impact the dwell time, but it impacts the quality of service that could get people there and make them more loyal in terms of the overall consumer experience with the truck stop.
Do you think part of the research found that even two people online can turn people off from buying?
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's anything with technology? I mean, I know you have probably fast point of sales. Yeah, it was amazing. Most truck stops or truck drivers stop up to 5 times a week at truck stops, and then this also paired with if there's more than two people online, they could turn them off from buying, which I found fascinating.
Oh, and it's completely true. But think about it. I mean, for me, my real world example of that is the airport, right?
Yeah.
Now there are apps where I know there's certain places that I like to eat and I prefer to eat whenever I'm in my airport or even the airports that I frequent, right? So I can go into those apps and I know that I can just order it on demand and I can show up and I can just pick it up instead of standing in the Starbucks line that's 30 people deep. I've already ordered it, right? And I just show up and I pick it up. And truck stops should be no different. And that's when I talk about really when we talk about the opportunity for food quality, timing, and demand forecasting. It's those are the things I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm. We talked about this a bit at the beginning about the new fintech companies that are changing the way travel centers interact with drivers using these payment technologies. Tell me more about that. Where do you think it's heading? And honestly, feel free to talk about what you guys are doing too. I'd love to hear more.
Well, for consumer payments,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that these are hugely impacted.
Oh,
But
yeah.
where I think you're really seeing the impact is with the commercial fleets, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's just historically there have been very few options for commercial payments at truck stops, and it's really complicated. The reason that's been that way is because it's complicated and it requires fuel pricing negotiations and all kinds of other negotiations, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing changes happening in real time in this space, and it's creating less expensive, more efficient solutions. And I can't really go super deep into this topic with you right now because it is something that we're working on.
Okay.
But this is definitely an area to watch.
Okay. Okay. Automation. I mean, I don't know anyone who's not fascinated by what's going on with automation, and that certainly includes me. Are there some automated solutions that PDI offers that are making a big difference? Anything exciting in your new product timeline?
Gosh, this is like you said, this is a huge opportunity for the market. It's a huge opportunity for consumers to benefit, and it's a huge opportunity for us. There's several different things. I mean, some of the concepts we could hit on is there's this idea of data brokering, so a data broker concept. And you can have all these APIs, but the environment is disconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically when we talk about, what's happening with automation, with all these different pieces, you don't want to cripple an overarching better technology to be able to talk to lesser or more antiquated technologies, right?
Yeah.
So you can't always get to the devices. But the strategy we're using with this data brokering concept, it's giving us the opportunity to talk to more and more stuff. And the more stuff we can talk to, the more data that we can get. And so we're building toolkits to address this right now, but it's a real-time issue facing the industry, and it's definitely a huge area of opportunity. And then another thing that I would point out with automation is that really when we go back to talking about food production, because I just think it's so important for truck stops,
Mm-hmm.
it's still radically very different than what we'd see in a traditional QSR.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so where I'm starting to see is I see the industry coming up with solutions, and we're starting to partner with people like Jolt. Jolt is a task management solution. And so that task management really helps with the production planning and the overall food preparation.
Yeah. That sounds amazing.
I think so.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, well, we talked about convenience technology, but PDI is also a wholesale petroleum business technology powerhouse. What do you think is most exciting in fuel technology right now?
Reality versus conceptual, what's coming is kind of what comes to my mind, because I'm excited mostly about what's possible because there is so much potential here. It's really, in my opinion, it's unexplored territory for advancement, right? There's lots and lots of opportunity, and we're starting to have a better idea of what's needed to overcome it. But this part of why there's so much opportunity here is because this is the least automated sector of the business, and it's especially around full fuel delivery, right?
Yeah.
Like a little bit of automation there would go a really, really long way. And then of course the bridge to data, right? The opportunity for automation and data sharing between upstream and downstream within the industry is immense. And it's when you step back and look at it right now, it looks a little bit like the Wild West. And we have a lot of things that are on our roadmap to specifically target and help make jobs easier, while also making the processes more seamless, because that's where we're hearing customers talk about it. That's where we're seeing the pain points pop up. And so the last point I would bring up here, though, is that automation is also going to be massively helpful in terms of helping improve accuracy within the industry.
Okay. PDI just finished your users conference. Were there any big announcements or something especially exciting for truck stops and travel centers?
I think so. So we actually announced this year during our users conference that starting in 2024, so next year, the conference is going to evolve into Connections Live. And we are looking at that as more than just a users conference. It's an industry-wide event.
Nice.
And it's really slated to bring together convenience leaders across the globe. And so right now, Connections we have a consumer community platform, and it digitally unites traditional PDI users. And so it's got training, it's got support, it's got events, it's got innovative solutions. But we're going to try to bring that to a live component, which our users conference traditionally does this anyway, but expanding the audiences who are able to come and have access to that education, and also expanding the audiences who contribute to the conversation, right? We want to make sure that everybody's got a voice in the room.
When I was looking at your lineup, it seemed like you have like a lot of interactive sessions. So I think more voices than that would be good.
That's exactly right. It was incredible this year being part of them. So I got to lead a couple of panel discussions myself, and just how much I learned from getting other leaders up there with me and having the conversation, and then allowing people, really anybody who wanted to register for that session, to come in and have the conversation and ask the questions that might be hard questions to ask, or you don't have the breadth of people that you've got access to. So it was a great experience.
I think we're going to, before I let you go, first I have to ask you my fun questions, but I think I just wanted to talk about loyalty programs a little bit more. Do you have what type of rewards programs do you think are most successful? Or I feel like you guys are one of the experts in this area.
I think that we are experts in this area as well. So I appreciate you saying that. And the head of our consumer engagement business, his name is Brandon Logston. He always says this thing: loyalty is not just a program, it's a result. And I think that that's why we're successful with loyalty, is that, within the industry, we look at mapping loyalty to what everybody else does for loyalty. And that doesn't necessarily translate to our consumers in the exact same way, right? And so for looking at how we tie things in, like age verification to loyalty, I mean, that's just going to be a massive, massive implication in a positive way towards consumers in our industry. And so when we look at it very holistically, but looking at it from a very consumer-centric perspective, and then also stepping back and trying to figure out what are the retailers, what are the wholesalers, and what do the brands need to achieve their loyalty objectives. And I think that that's why we're seeing success.
Awesome. Speaking of success, I should have asked this at the intro, but how can people learn more about PDI?
Well, you can always go to our website, which is PDItechnologies.com. But I would highly engage people to engage with us on social media. We're really active, and we have a lot of Q&A and dialogue with consumers, as well as because we have consumer platforms like Gas Buddy, and then we're connected to Fuel Rewards.
Right.
And then also we have tons of customers that will come in and just interact with us through our social to find out more about a solution. And we go out twice a year with our launches just to kind of aggregate messages for the industry in general. So I would watch out for those. They typically are in the April-May timeframe. And then again, we do one right before NACS. That happens to be the last week of September this year.
Right around the corner. Okay, well, before I let you go, I have to ask you my fun questions. What is your go-to on the road snack?
It's two things.
Okay.
One, I'm an ice person. So I love the biggest unsweet iced tea I can get, but it's got to have really good ice. So nugget ice is preferred.
Yep.
And then the less healthy part of that equation is anything peanut butter and chocolate.
Is there a certain C-store or truck stop that has the best ice?
Oh gosh, you put me on the spot with that one. I can tell you, this is how big of an ice aficionado I am while I'm dodging your answer. My favorite convenience store, my children know that when they go in to get me an iced tea, that they have to use the ice maker on the left because it's better than the ice maker on the right. Like, that's the level of granularity we get to.
That's funny. Okay, well, one of my questions is how you take your truck stop coffee. Can I assume that it would be an iced tea instead?
It would be an iced tea instead. Although I recently have started drinking iced coffee lattes, so iced lattes. And so the whole market emergence of ready-to-go beverages is appealing to me. I happen to be somebody who has adopted and weighed into that craze. And we see data that's a massively moving part of, growing part of the industry. And as a consumer, I myself have started consuming it.
Nice. Okay, just a couple more. If you're stuck at a truck stop in a snowstorm, how would you pass the time?
I find that truck stops tend to have really good cheese enchiladas. So
I
would order some cheese enchiladas. And then I would, if it's truly a snowstorm and I'm stuck there for a while, I would probably try to figure out some sort of game solution. I'm a big board game person.
Okay. Do you prefer to ride or to drive?
Depends on if my husband is driving.
Okay. That's funny. We haven't gotten that one yet. Okay. And the last one is a faux controversial question. Is it a truck stop or travel center or travel plaza? What's the correct term? And there's no correct answer.
I've always called them truck stops.
Truck stops. Okay. That is certainly the answer we get the most. All right. Well, thank you so much, Bethany, for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everyone for listening to today's episode of The Truck Stops Here. You can find us online at natso.com/podcast. If you have any questions that you want answered on the podcast, please reach out to me at editor@natso.com. Thanks again.
The Truck Stops Here was brought to you by NATSO, the association representing truck stops and travel centers. Visit natso.com for more information. The Truck Stops Here is produced by NATSO in collaboration with Human Factor. Producers are Amy Toner and Darren Schulte.